I would
No,
disagree a little
president
bit.
should review that.
Oh, absolutely.
I just don't have faith in that man as being competent and having the mindset of approaching this in a tempered way that an American president should. This man tweets at 2 a.m. caps lock about his poll numbers, crazy stuff. This is not a stable.
He also threatened the president. They have chanted death to America in their own government. They have made significant threats, calling the United States Big Satan.
Yeah.
Israel is Little Satan.
So
Yes, and it's just crisis after crisis. In this man, I have no faith in at all because he acts like a guy who got a day pass from the memory wing of a nursing home.
I mean, the Jews. Senator, what about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now.
Senator, you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that.
That is reality of what happened here. They were enriched. They were enriched.
The reason why October 7th happened was because of Joe Biden.
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into this segment. You won't believe it. I guess it was Joe Biden's fault why we're in this mess with Iran. Just amazing. Check this segment out and we'll talk about it.
Tonight, MAGA is going at it over Trump's potential involvement in Iran. Last night, we showed you a glimpse of the contentious interview between former Fox host Tucker Carlson and Senator Ted Cruz. But today, Carlson released the full interview, and it turns out that accusing Cruz of knowing nothing about the country he sought to topple was just the tip of the iceberg.
I like Trump. I campaigned for Trump. I know Trump. I talked to him last night. I'm not against Trump, and you know that.
But you're against his foreign policy.
I think that we should be very careful about entering into more foreign wars that don't help us when our country is dying.
Look, yes, focus on our country. I'm all for it. But the naivete.
You don't even know how much money this costs. You don't know anything about the country whose government you want to overthrow, and you're calling me reckless.
I want to stop a lunatic who wants to murder us from getting nuclear weapons that could kill millions of Americans.
Fair.
You say, I can't see how that benefits America in any way. That is bizarre. And by the way,
bizarre.
Isolationism, your foreign policy is the foreign policy of Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm a big leftist.
Well, this is actually not parody, believe it or not, despite the two of them sort of acting like caricatures of themselves. But Jennifer, I mean, you were talking about this a little bit earlier. I mean, Ted Cruz is, trying to make the case to the MAGA right that Trump should be involved in another conflict in the Middle East. And it is interesting to see this play out, except it's on the right, not left and right.
It's delicious and interesting, but you have a Russian propagandist with a man, Ted Cruz, that is a rapture prepper. And what's lost in all of this is the American public. How does this serve the United States of America? Everybody in Israel has health care. Nobody goes bankrupt because they have cancer. But in the United States, we don't, yet we send them aid. And so what's lost in this entire message is all of this propaganda just gets pushed into the news cycle. It's how does this benefit a country that is breaking every single day?
I thought it was interesting Tucker Carlson said America is dying. So it doesn't feel like a lot of America pride right there. It also is fascinating that Ted Cruz is saying that when, correct me if I'm wrong, Congresswoman, but it doesn't sound like he's been briefed either on this war. And so he's making a lot of determinations with minimal information. But I think this is important. This is an issue that I think will transcend parties, honestly. I think there will be some Democrats that think, to your point, we should support Israel's approach on this with any cause, and there will be some Republicans. But I think the majority of Americans will want us to take a beat. And I am in agreement, not completely with Tucker Carlson, but I think what he was saying to Ted Cruz is, you're on talking points about people's lives, and that is dangerous, and you're an elected official. You know what? Tucker can kind of do that because he's a TV personality. Ted Cruz is elected. He represents people. He has taken an oath to our Constitution. He needs to be better.
Look, 80% of the country, Republican and Democrat, agree with President Trump that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. The question is, how do we stop them from having a nuclear weapon and using one with the least intervention possible, right? We don't want to go into a forever war. We don't want to risk young men and women, Americans' lives. The money is a real issue, 37 trillion in debt. We cannot afford it. These are all valid. The question is, how do we deter? How do we stop? Now, I think President Trump is doing what he can at this moment by making these projections to try to get Iran to the table, to try to get some type of diplomatic resolution to this. Any action he takes, it needs to be in the interest of the United States of America. It needs to be because we are under threat. And we know, based on history, that Iran has made various threats to the United States. They've said they would kill people on our own soil. They've threatened the president. They have chanted death to America in their own government. They have made significant threats, calling the United States Big Satan.
Yeah.
Israel is Little
Has
Satan.
been
So
going on for
exactly. We need to know if there's an exact threat.
I think Americans say here.
Hold on. Big Satan and Little Satan. This is amazing. You can see this brainless idiot looking for reasons. And I heard this claim before about Iran said death to America. And of course, with any claim that sounds alarming or shocking, you should probably look further into it. And I've said this before here. You shouldn't even believe me. If it's something sounds off or whatnot, look into it yourself. Get into that habit. And what you'll find about that claim, death to America, that it was never meant as a literal death to American or its citizens. The Iranian leaders have multiple times came out and said it wasn't meant in that way. It was about U.S. government policies that interfere with Iranian affairs. That's it. It wasn't a literal call to death. But of course, Republicans, the party of racists, try to always scare people about different groups of people. And what a surprise, they happen to be brown and Muslim. Oh, who saw that coming? It's the same playbook over and over. I've been hearing this from Republicans this past week or so. They want death to America as one of the main reasons. Should we really be giving weapons to people that want death to America? And like, the way I see it, even if they did, they're allowed to chant that. Just like we could chant that, the same thing if we wanted to here in our country. Are we just going to go after every country that says something mean to us? Like, this is just insane. Would they be allowed to just come here and murk everything? Like, get the hell out of here.
That, and they're like, well, okay, Iran's been making these threats for a long time, and they've carried out those threats, and yet the United States hasn't taken this particular step. I actually want to just play one more piece. This is an exchange in which essentially Ted Cruz accuses Tucker Carlson of being anti-Semitic because, in Ted Cruz's view, he keeps talking about Israel. Listen.
What you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question: what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, like, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that.
It's an interesting debate because basically, I mean, Tucker's position is that Israel has, it seems, the ability to say, we're going to do this, and then we're going to pressure the United States to come in after us and help. Ted Cruz says, well, you're just obsessed with Israel.
Yeah, I disagree with the premise and framing of the position articulated by the senator. I'm not sure why he was bringing up other countries. We're dealing with an issue in the Middle East that does involve Israel, and the implications are wide and, for the most part, unknown for the United States and our interests. I am in support of Israel and being able to defend itself and us being able to defend Israel indirectly. Again, the biggest concern here, if we do take this strike, as I've stated, and I don't think we're considering this enough, and Iran responds, and they activate these groups that they have in the region, whether it's in Iraq or the Houthis, and they kill American soldiers or wound American soldiers, we have to get involved at that point, Abby. And once we're involved, what is the finish line? Where does that actually end? And no one seems to know this. So Tucker is correct. We absolutely must be judicious and know all of the information before we make a determination that we should be the individuals being directly involved versus supporting our friends and ally, that being Israel.
Isn't this exactly the debate that a lot of people on the left have been asking for, which is to say, why can't we talk about the degree to which the United States foreign policy is driven by the decisions of another nation state? I think people on the left have been asking that question for a long time, but now that Tucker Carlson's asking it, I guess, Ted Cruz has to answer.
Yeah, and I just think as the United States moves forward, at one point during the Iraq War, we were the propagandists. Colin Powell went to the United Nations and he used propaganda to start a war in Iraq. And George W. Bush reduced taxes during a wartime, and that's a big chunk of the deficit. And American voters care very much about that. The next big chunk of the deficit is while Donald Trump is doing all of this stuff, his billionaire friends are not paying taxes. And that's why people can file medical bankruptcy in the richest country in the world. So with Trump, we go from all of these things. We went to his big breakup with Elon Musk to his lackluster turnout to his birthday party. Now we're on this, and it's just crisis after crisis. And this man, I have no faith in at all because he acts like a guy who got a day pass from the memory wing of a nursing home. I mean, when you see him on TV, he's slurring. He's not competent. It is just terrifying when you see the chyron that says, Trump is reviewing war plans. And as we're all sitting here, do we think that man is competent enough to review war plans when Pete Hegseth is his
Right.
I mean, it's
and
just...
I think to your point,
And guys, just put yourself in Iran's position. They're literally surrounded by countries with nuclear weapons, but they aren't allowed to. India, Pakistan, UK, Russia, Israel, China. I'm sure I'm missing more in that region. Yeah, it would be nice if no one had nuclear weapon capabilities, but we are just way past that point. We had an agreement with them in which they would enrich uranium at an exponentially slower pace. We were monitoring them, and not only us, the world. And essentially they were abiding and doing what they were supposed to do. And of course, Trump's dumbass goes in there and rips up the deal, which allowed for this. What we are seeing now, it's just amazing. And I can't help but see that Israel is almost like bullying this region, bullying Iran, and using their big brother, the United States, to handle the real fight for them when things get actually dirty. And then we ask ourselves years later, oh, where did ISIS come from? How the hell did we end up with Al Qaeda? After we desecrate their home and their land, like, incredible.
There also is a massive budget bill that is being negotiated right now on the Hill that would have devastating consequences to Democrats and Republicans. And it is moving, and it will move this summer. And people, it's hard sometimes to pay attention to everything, but there's a lot of stuff happening domestically that we need to be paying attention to. The one thing no one has said at this table is, why are we here? Early, to your point, Abby, Iran has been saying this for many, many years. We were in the JCPOA, and they were slowing down their preparations for a nuclear. And Donald Trump in his first term pulled out of it. So perhaps they would not have been 3 weeks away from a nuclear weapon if he hadn't made the mistake in the first place. Now we're in the situation where he could make, I don't know.
First of all, they were not adhering to the terms of the agreement. That's number one. That's why he pulled out. But the reason why, look, President Trump actually economically crippled Iran. It wasn't until the Biden administration came in, they issued waivers, they lifted sanctions, they helped Iran be enriched again, and that was what funded the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. That's why October 7th happened, because they had the resources because of all the actions that gave them the resources that the Biden administration took. That is reality of what happened here. They were enriched. They were enriched.
The reason why October 7th happened was because of Joe Biden?
Well, no. What I said was, what I'm saying is he enriched Iran once again by lifting sanctions, issuing waivers, so they can continue to work on the nuclear program. They did not,
and the American people spoke.
And they had those resources, and that is why Hamas was well funded and well equipped to take out on that attack on October 7th.
I don't want to get off the point of like the actual issue that we're talking about now. And I do think that if your assertion is that Iran was not following and trustworthy of the agreement we were in, what then happened to prevent Iran from getting 3 weeks away from a nuclear weapon from Donald Trump pulling out and from that deal. And I think that that action had collateral consequences that we are still living with today.
Well, it was 4 years of
I'm
waivers
not saying
being-
that. I'm not saying
it was
that.
4 years of waivers that allowed
we
civilians
do
to
need to see
continue
the
to work on the
intelligence to
program.
see why that expedited process has occurred. And number two, the president should absolutely review potential strike plans if there is credible evidence that we should take this attack because U.S. soldiers or 100,000+ American citizens who also live in Israel may be in jeopardy. So I would disagree a little
president
bit.
should review that.
Oh, absolutely.
I just don't have faith in that man as being competent and having the mindset of approaching this in a tempered way that an American president should. This man tweets at 2 a.m. caps lock about his poll numbers, crazy stuff. This is not a stable.
He also brought the Abraham Accords, which really brought a tremendous amount of peace and prosperity in that region with the countries that were involved. We have the ability to expand on that. Look, again, October 7th would have never happened if it were not for some of the things that the Biden administration chose to do that helped enrich Iran.
Hold on. Let's leave it there for now. Coming up next.
And guys, let me know what you think in the comments. But I can't help but think that moron that sits in the White House, he wants this war. If you remember, he labeled himself wartime president during COVID, and he lost that war in brutal and just embarrassing display. You don't think he wants to actually be a wartime president? The man is such an empty human being. I think he truly would want this for his crap legacy and wants to be able to say he did this and that, and how sick his mind works just makes sense to me that he would want this. And why not? He would love to harm more brown people if he could as well, as just a bonus, as a cherry on top. I don't know, but I think he's going to get us into this war. He has literally made all the wrong decisions since he came into office. And right now, I think I saw half of the Republican Party is in support of him as of right now. Like, I think he's going to do it. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Please leave a like, subscribe, really helps the channel, really helps push the message out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.